Mi sushisto!
Hi guys, it's Stu from the Folk's Sake podcast, and I'm here with Amir from Difference Coffee. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, likewise.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, great. So, let's tell the guys what we're going to do today.
Well, I kind of thought that it might be a good idea for me to kind of just share a little bit about coffee in general and maybe just do a little bit of roasting, show you how it's done and demystify everything. Because, you know, when it comes to coffee, there are so many misconceptions. And one of the things that I kind of take a lot of pride in is being a coffee outsider, coming into the industry and just saying, hold on a second, what is it really all about? And how can we simplify each and every process to produce the best coffee in the world? I mean, that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, so what do you think Difference is like all about? Because obviously we work in the similar industry. Obviously your coffee, we're Japanese ingredients. You wouldn't think they go together, but we tend to cross paths quite a lot, don't we really?
Well, funnily enough, you know, if you think about specialty coffee and literally the best coffees out there, you know, the best lots, most of them end up in Asia.
Oh, really?
A lot of them are in Japan. If you look at Jamaica Blue Mountain, for example, as a crop, as a varietal, over 80% of the crop goes to Japan.
Is that right?
It's the largest coffee consuming country for Jamaica Blue Mountain.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Right, yes, I suppose it's because it's a global market, really, coffee, isn't it? It's not, you know, you don't know where it's going to go. I mean, it's as Italian as, you know, it's not Italian at all, is it really?
Well, I mean, coffee doesn't grow in Italy.
Yeah.
Coffee, funnily enough, it's our second largest market is Italy when it comes to trade. We've got over 30 Michelin restaurants now serving coffee which is roasted in the UK. So, you know, people that say, oh, Italians are very close-minded when it comes to coffee, or they're very nationalistic and so on. In some way they are, and, you know, as we all are in some ways. But when it comes to coffee, they are actually more open-minded to trying. You know, once they get over the fact that obviously coffee doesn't grow in Italy, and we tell them that we source some of the best ones, they are more open to trying it.
Right.
So we've done tremendously well in Italy for that reason.
And what are the sort of more popular varieties in Italy then, like, for example?
Well, I mean, I think that they are happy to try everything.
Oh, really?
You know,
quite dynamic.
Well, the thing is that they were always used to kind of traditional commodity coffee, which is a blend of, you know, regular Arabica and Robusta, kind of like 70-30, 60-40 mix. And it's always kind of very bitter and burnt, like really dark roasted. And suddenly with the advance of specialty coffee, suddenly they're seeing that it's a bit like in wine, you know, you've got more refined taste, you've got more fruity taste, you've got much more chocolatey notes and things that they've never tried before. So they're very open in the kitchen, at least that we are going to.
Ah, great. So when you're like selecting coffee, like from the lots, how do you sort of like work it out for your customers, really?
So I think it's, well, to be honest with you, everything is sort of based on my palate.
Right,
and what I like, to be honest with you.
I mean, I'm the same.
So it's well, I say that, but it's not quite true, because there's quite a lot of selection that goes behind the scenes with professional cuppers before it even reaches my lips.
Oh,
so
really?
There's a lot that goes on even prior to that. And I'll explain to you the process because it's quite easy. But at the end of the day, in terms of whether a coffee is then chosen to be part of our collection or not, is really just based on what I think about it, what I, you know, if I like it, and, you know, I'll give some friends to try it and stuff like that, you know. But there's sometimes you try something and you go, oh wow, this is so delicious, I want to share that with other people because I think it is so unique. What we try to do is we try to get a collection of different coffees from different origins that taste different. There's no point in just doing lots and lots and lots of different geishas or different farms of Jamaica and stuff like that. We always try to get one which is like one of the best, if it makes sense.
So you want to sort of hit quite a few different character points, really?
You just want them to taste different. You know, if you can have one coffee that tastes very much like dark chocolate and, you know, citrus notes, and you've got another coffee that tastes very much like florals, jasmines and stone fruit. So you want things to be very different, otherwise what's the point?
Can I ask you about Robusta?
Sure.
Is there a good Robusta?
Yeah.
Because it always seems to be like the poor cousin, and if it's got any Robusta anywhere near it, you don't touch it, kind of thing.
So the thing is, it's a very good question, and it's one that I continuously look out for. I haven't yet introduced a Robusta to my line, but this is how it works. So when it comes to Arabica, it's graded using a 100-point system, and any coffee over 80 points is deemed of specialty grade. So that's specialty grade Arabica. What they've done with Robusta in recent years, particularly due to getting better lots of Robusta grown, the SCA has created, or the CQI, Coffee Quality Institute, has created a new kind of like 100-point system for Robusta, which is called fine Robusta rather than specialty Robusta.
Okay.
Now, the highest cupping scoring Robusta that I've tried was 85 points, which is very, very good. I mean, it's a kind of like on the top end of Robusta, of Arabica. Any 85-point scoring coffee is like really, really high. And I've been toying around with the idea of creating one Robusta that will taste really, really good. I haven't done it yet. I haven't kind of said I love it that much to say, you know what, it's for me, it's the only advantage that there is to it is that it actually tastes good, and it's got nearly twice as much caffeine.
All right. Okay.
So I would feel, my problem is it would feel as if I was creating it just for the caffeine's sake.
Sure, because you don't want a Robusta to replace an Arabica just because it's a Robusta. It has to have its own thing.
Yeah, I mean, when I will taste a Robusta, that will be great enough to say, ooh, actually, this Robusta has something in its flavor, something in its taste that is unique enough to say, oh, I really, really want it, and it will stand on its own feet without having to resort to coming telling people, but it's Robusta, so it's more caffeinated. Then I will do it. But before that, what's the point, you know?
Is most of that stuff grown in like Vietnam and places like that? Because I went to Vietnam years ago and they had like, their coffee's really strong, but then they put loads of condensed milk, loads of sugar, and you just take the sweetness off the scale.
Yeah, so Arabica and Robusta grows kind of like around the equator belt, you know? So you've got different countries producing more or less of Robusta. Robusta is grown in Brazil, is grown in Vietnam, there's quite a lot. It's grown a lot in India, in the Philippines. In the Philippines, they've got very, very nice Robusta. Actually, the best sample I've tried there is in Laos as well. So there are lots of countries producing Robusta. And yeah, I mean, it's mostly doesn't taste good, but most Arabicas don't taste good either.
Right, okay.
You know, I mean, you know, if you look at, you know, the entire kind of like ecosystem, the entire market, the entire crop, it's only like 1% that actually is of specialty grade. You know,
is that it?
Something like that. I mean, you know, looking at the total market, of which I always forget the statistics because you're talking about millions and billions of bags per year, and each bag is like 60, 70 kilos. So it's a lot of coffee. So 1% is still a massive amount when you think about it.
Right, so you got to think yourself lucky if you're having any kind of specialty coffee, really, I suppose. It's 1%. Can I ask you a question about pods? Because I know you do pods, right? So I'm a bit like, I can't fall in love with them. So when they first came out, I don't know, was it like 12, 13 years ago? Something like that? I bought a machine.
No, much longer. I think it started in the 70s.
Oh, maybe not.
And I think George Clooney came in at kind of like 2000 or something. So that's 24 years ago, you know?
They had me at Clooney. So, well, I got a machine and I got some pods.
Sure.
It was when Nespresso was sort of like became big in the sort of like mid 2000s.
Sure.
And, you know, tried to get into, but they all taste the same to me. Okay. No matter what variety. Yeah. They always taste like they've come out of a pod. I can't explain it.
Yeah, I think that is the misconception. So I don't want to comment too much about them all tasting the same. I get it because I
don't think I'm right, but I mean, that's just my experience.
They are very similar. Let's put it this way, they are very similar.
Is the pod sort of method adding anything to this experience then?
No. It's purely the coffee that you put inside. So if you take, for example, Nespresso has a capsule called Kazar, which is 100% Robusta. It's like 12 on the strength, you know, scale, right? You taste it, it's like, whoa, it's so bitter, right? But they've got much nicer ones. In fact, I have an espresso capsule, which I can bring to you if you want to see it. Okay. It's a specialty grade Arabica, which they've done recently as a limited edition. They sell it in packs of, four for like 11 quid or something. So it's about 250, just over £2 a capsule. Sure. And it tastes really nice. Right. So it shows that, you can produce, you have to look at a capsule as a brewing method. Ultimately, you will extract flavor that.
And you're not getting much coffee, are you? Actually, quantity in an espresso capsule.
Well, you get about 6 grams. Now, if you take a normale in Italy, it's made with a 7-gram shot.
Oh, okay.
So it's very similar to what you get in Italy as a single espresso.
Sure. That's probably another reason why I'm over extracting it. That's going to be the killer, isn't it?
If you over extract the coffee, it will taste very bitter.
That's probably why they always
and astringent. So it depends how you make it too.
Well, I see all these massive Nespresso shops with like the Pantone palette of all these different flavours, and I walk past it and I just always think to myself, they all taste the same.
Have you tasted my coffee?
I've tasted it in restaurants, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Can we brew one or two?
Yeah,
and
let's
just
do it. So we're luckily here we've got, well, first of all, I'm lucky I'm with the man himself, but we're lucky we've actually got some cool gadgets. We've got a roasting machine, a little cupping roasting machine, is that right?
This is just a sample roaster.
Sample roaster.
Cupping is the process of just trying the coffee, which we'll do later.
Okay.
But yeah, this is a sample roaster. It's made by a company called Ikawa, which is made in the UK. And costs about $4,000.
Right.
And it's kind of like the industry standard. It's what kind of like every roastery has one. And we use that when we get samples of coffee to assess them. You know, you're not going to roast 5 kilos to assess a sample of coffee. So you'll do kind of like little samples of lots of them, and then you'll cup and you taste, and that's what will be. You know. It's
a really cool little machine, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's very nice. I mean, you'll see it in a minute at work.
So, but first, you're going to prove me wrong about capsule. I want to be proved wrong. That's why I bring it up.
Well, you know what?
I want to be proven
wrong. Actually, give me 1 second. I want to bring something. Because I've got something upstairs. Just give me 2 seconds.
I'll just do a little dance and keep them happy.
Just do a little dance. Just give a second, right? So let me show you something, right? I mean, this is the easiest thing to do. I've got a couple of Nespresso capsules here.
Okay.
So let's take one of my capsules. Okay. And let me just kind of empty the contents, and you can smell this coffee.
And this is yours?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
Just smell some more.
It smells really fresh for a start off.
Yeah, okay. Now let's do exactly the same with this capsule of Nespresso.
I mean, the colour, it looks really brown.
It's darker, yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't smell great. It smells a bit off. Is that right?
It's not. No, it's not off. It's not off.
That smells like nice fruity coffee that you've just freshly ground.
Yeah.
If I'm honest. I'm not trying to say it's terrible.
No. It's just.
It does smell a bit muddy.
It's just a different coffee. So again, let me brew one, and let me brew, the same coffee. And you can taste, an espresso capsule. And a good espresso capsule, it's not bad. I mean, it's kind of
like... So this
one's
like a medium range and espresso one?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is their standard one that I've used to drink before I started different coffee.
Oh, really?
And it's I think it's a nice coffee, but it's, it's not the kind of stuff that we do. So, I mean, if you look at it, it looks the same.
Yeah.
Right? So, taste this one.
Got a slightly orange... crema, this one's a little bit more messy.
We just made it because it's less fresh, so it's.
Is that right?
So what happens? No, because I just brewed it. So what happened is I brewed it like a minute ago. Now the crema is essentially bubbles.
Okay.
So it's the result of carbon dioxide interfering with the extraction. So it results in crema. In a few minutes, it will come down to the same kind of consistency. So try this one, the one on the left.
Okay.
And just kind of like slurp it. Just.
Are you going to tell me which one's which?
Well, you'll know yourself.
Yeah, okay.
Don't worry, it's not. Okay, That's one, and then try this one, and you'll see the main difference between them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you see what I mean? So you can taste significant difference between them in flavor,
right?
Yeah,
definitely.
So it's like I said, it's not to do with the capsule itself, because all that happens is if you think about a capsule, what happens inside is you take a capsule. You put your 6 grams of coffee in, which is, ground. You nitroflush it to remove any residual oxygen, and you close it. When you seal it, you're creating an environment which is oxygen-free. It has been nitroflushed to remove any residual oxygen. So, and the coffee doesn't degas anymore because it doesn't have any room to escape.
Right.
So it doesn't degas, it doesn't oxidize, it retains its freshness, and you can see that with the crema.
How long does
2 years.
There you go.
2 years. So I mean, I've got like not a lot, because normally we drink it and everything, but from time to time I put some stuff aside, and I return to it later to try it. Like a year or two later, it still tastes so good.
Really?
Yeah,
that's amazing.
because you're able to retain so much freshness in the capsule for a very long time, because it's got an oxygen barrier. One of the questions we get asked a lot regarding compostable capsules is, why don't we go compostable route? And there's a lot of reasons for them, but the first and foremost is freshness. So the compostable materials don't have an oxygen barrier of the same quality as our capsules.
Sure.
So it's not going to retain its freshness for a long time.
Yeah, and of course, I think I'm sure you don't mind me saying, I think one of the things about you guys is you're trying to push the envelope on quality.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole reason for what we do, because, if you take Nespresso, I mean, they created an amazing brand with really, really, good coffee that everybody enjoys.
Mm-hmm.
Our role is not to compete with Nespresso, but rather go on a different journey of something which is very unique and special. And it's a journey that Nespresso is not going into. They're not producing the sort of coffees that we do. I once met somebody from Nespresso, and they were very nice to me. Mm-hmm. And they don't care about other people doing compatibles.
No, they're a really strong brand anyway, don't they?
Yeah, it's Nestle. I mean, it's one of the biggest companies on earth. I mean, they're a really great company if you think about it. But it is mass-produced coffee, so you're never going to get your tiny micro lot from a single estate. It's just not going to happen.
You're more specialist within specialist.
Well,
everything you do is a specialist coffee, but you're trying to go beyond that, really, aren't you?
So I always say, if you take specialty Arabica being the top 1%, so we are the 0.1% of that. So we're trying to find the best of the best.
Yeah.
That's kind of it.
That's a good place to start.
Really, yeah.
I mean, to be honest, from a learning point of view, it is a good place to start from. I'm not ignorant to coffee. Actually, I do love it. I probably like the most ignorant coffee connoisseur there is. So I'm desperate to learn more all the time about coffee, even though it's like nothing to do with my business. It's just flavour, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, absolutely. I mean, it's funnily enough, I didn't like coffee for many years.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I was a tea drinker. I wasn't a coffee drinker until probably about a year and a half before I started Difference Coffee. And what happened was my wife made us buy an espresso machine. And I started drinking espresso, and I would put sugar inside because
take the edge off.
It's to take the edge off. So there's two ways you can take the edge off something which is that I find really bitter, or anybody finds really bitter. You either add sugar to it, enough sugar to it, or you add milk to it, because milk also removes bitterness in a way, subdues bitterness. So that's kind of like how most people drink coffee.
Yeah.
And I didn't see the point. I was like, well, if I don't like the drink, why do I need to drink milk and sugar and all this kind of stuff? Like, what's the point?
Sure.
So, but when I bought an espresso, I started, I'll start with sugar, because I was drinking a lot of caffeinated drinks like Coke and stuff like that.
Sure.
And my wife was like, you're drinking too much Red Bull and too much. So, okay, let's
now that
drink.
is bad for you.
I know, right?
Drinking too much of that caffeine.
So I was doing that, and then, going to restaurants and drinking their coffee, which 99% of the time was worse than what I had at home in a capsule, which was weird, because, you go to a lot of restaurants and they have espresso machines with freshly ground beans and so on. And you imagine that the coffee is going to taste better, but so many times they don't clean the equipment.
Yeah.
They don't brew the coffee
no
correctly.
Volumes going through it.
There's no volumes going through it. So you see the beans kind of like, you open the bag, it smells great, but a week later the beans are still in the hopper there, kind of like collecting dust and stuff. The coffee is stale as hell. It's got no crema.
Yeah.
You've got no barista, so it's, you just got lots of front of house stuff, pressing a button, not looking. You're never going to create anything which is tasty.
Well, this is why I kind of gave up on all that stuff. So I bought a little barista machine for the house years ago. I had an espresso machine years ago, and the best thing I ever bought was just the £3 V60, the Harrier V60.
Yep.
And get some nice coffee.
Yeah, my go-to. Oh.
And I got the specialist coffee roaster in my village just to grind it for me to V60. And I'm like, well,
there you go.
Yeah,
Simple.
there you go. Why we're messing about, you know what I mean? And unless you've got really good equipment and that's being used by, look at your grinder there, that's a serious piece of kit.
Yeah.
So The only upgrade I've done, which is the one I've done recently, is to buy a grinder. But proper grinders are quite expensive, so I found a reasonably cheap one.
Yeah.
There was a fellow one, it was about £300.
Yeah.
But I mean,
They're decent.
£300 still is quite a lot for just to grind coffee for most people, isn't it? You're not most people, though.
Well, I mean,
I know how much these
this
are.
thing cost over £2,000, you know.
Considering my V60 was £3.
But you know what? You can create better coffee with, of course, a two grinder or even a 300-pound grinder and a 2-pound than you can with amazing, big, expensive machines and a really, really poor grinder. Most people, when they talk about coffee, they first look at the machine and they get impressed with the actual machine.
Oh yeah, the buttons and the shiny bits.
Yeah, and it is the least important piece of equipment, you know. At the end of the day, the flavor is going to come from the beans. Yep. So no matter what equipment you've got, you can have the best, you know, EK43, you can get the La Marzocco Stratas and stuff like that. If it didn't happen in the farm, it's not going to happen in your cup. Okay, so the most important thing is the sourcing of the actual beans themselves. The second thing is making sure that you're going to get an extraction which is even, which is balanced. Okay. Now, why does this grinder cost £2,000 and your grinder costs £300 and another grinder can cost £5? What's the main difference between them? When you take coffee and you chop it up, essentially you grind it up, right? You break it into small particle sizes, right? Mm-hmm. So what you really want is to have a grind which is as uniform as possible. It's never going to be precisely uniform. It's never going to be, everything is going to be precisely the same micron size. You're going to get like a distribution curve, you know, of particles, you know, most of them kind of like being in the middle, right? Then you're going to have bigger particle size, which are called boulders, and you're going to get finer particle sizes known as fines. The fines will extract quicker than most of the coffee, and the boulders will under extract compared to the rest of the coffee. Mm-hmm. The more fines and boulders you have, the less even and the less extraction, or the less extraction you get from the coffee in a way, or the less balanced extraction you get from the coffee. Mm-hmm. The better the grinder, the more uniform the grind.
And that's it?
That's it.
And is it down to the quality of the burrs or the motor? Or the burrs are the kind of like circular metal?
No, it's the burrs.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the burrs. It's the size of the burrs predominantly.
Size?
Yeah, the larger the burrs, the better.
Really?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it gets a little bit more technical, but in general, the bigger the burrs,
it's interesting because, like, again, you know, the more you dive into coffee, the more you still end up needing to learn, and then I end up talking to you. So, but like, even when I bought this coffee machine and started researching this coffee grinder, even when I started researching into it, and then everyone said, it's a good machine, but you need to take the burrs out, throw them away, and buy some other ones from Korea. I'm like, I'm not doing that.
The SSPs, right. So,
yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, you can. So if you do that, so basically what happens there is that they're just sharper.
Okay. It was a different angle profile as well, I think.
Yeah.
Interlocking or something?
So, yeah, I mean, that's the technical stuff.
Is that right?
Basically, they are harder and sharper, and they will last longer, and they will, again, it's just tiny bit better. Now, how important is it if your coffee is not great? Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, you're talking about tiny changes compared to actually the most important thing. You know, you're forgetting the elephant in the room, which is actually the beans.
Yeah.
Then you're looking at the machine. So a lot of people go, oh, you need a 9-bar pressure. Well, an espresso machine operates on 16-bar pressure.
Really?
Yeah. So there's not a problem of, you don't have a problem of pressure. So how do you choose an espresso machine? What's really, really important when you're buying an espresso machine, for example, for say a hotel or a coffee shop? Because everything is done, well, manually or not I mean, everything is done using somebody kind of overseeing the process. What do you want there to happen? You want the espresso machine to have a timer that basically shows you how long it is taken to extract the coffee. You want the amount of coffee each and every time to be consistent. So you want the machine to say, produce, let's say you're taking a portafilter and you're putting, just for argument's sake, 18 grams of coffee in.
Yep.
pressing a
Would
button.
that be a double espresso?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll want there to come out 36 grams of coffee. That's say your recipe.
Sure.
And that should take anything between 25 and 30 seconds, let's say, okay? Now, if it's taken 10 seconds, it means that the grind was too coarse. So you've under-extracted your coffee. If it takes 50 seconds, it was too fine, you're probably over-extracting your coffee and it will taste kind of, what's it called? Bitter and astringent. And the other side will taste very sour. So what you need from the equipment is the ability to give you a timer and volumetrics. Volumetrics is basically that thing that measures the grams that you're producing out. Most machines used in the industry today, not in specialty coffee shops, but around, don't have either.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you go into a coffee shop and you'll see somebody kind of just pressing a button, leaving it, and then and that's sort of stopping it whenever it thinks it is and stuff like that. It's taking 5 seconds, 10 second extraction, It's just a freaking mess. What I love about capsules in particular is that I control the extraction. I set it up with a precise amount of dose each and every time, exactly the same grind. The environment doesn't change because it's hermetically sealed. And each time the machine will produce exactly the same amount of coffee, which will result in exactly the same taste. That's where you get consistency.
And I suppose you're designing the taste, not designing the taste, you're selecting the taste and then grinding it to achieve a certain result. And if you know that the actual process that the customer's doing is kind of almost out of their hands, you know that they're going to get what you are wanting them to get.
Right. So I can get a little bit technical if you want. I can show you how it's done later. There is, when you're extracting coffee, like I said, you can under-extract the coffee.
These are going cold as well, right?
Sorry? Yeah, I mean, so what happens is that when coffee turns cold, it becomes more either sweet or more bitter. So try that cold and try the other one cold, and you'll see what happens.
This one's more tangy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this one's more sort of like robust, I would guess.
Yeah.
You know?
It's just a darker roasted coffee, you know, kind of like. So this one, and again, you know, there's a lot of people that like regular coffee. Not everybody likes specialty coffee. Specialty coffee by definition is kind of like more like crazy stuff if you think about it. You know, it has to, in order to be specialty, it needs a quality of taste which makes it unique. Yeah. It is the unique 1%.
Well, you know, I'm one of these people who really likes coffee, but I actually do like a little bit of whole milk and a little bit of sugar. I do like the rounded taste.
Sure.
And I like good coffee. Yeah. So, and you know, over the years, and it's been years I've been drinking nice coffee. Yeah. That's what I like. But I also like drinking black coffee as well. Sure.
I've got some milk if you want.
No.
There's no problem. Got some sugar,
you know that sort
milk.
Of smooth flavor that you can get?
Sure.
I really like that sort of flavor profile.
I think the thing is that ultimately, you've got coffee and you've got a coffee drink. So a coffee drink, let's say...
I mean, I can't stand the ones that have got loads of steamed milk in them personally.
No, fair enough. But let's say a cortado or something like that. Sure. Essentially, it's mixed, right, of milk and coffee. So what you have is a milk that has been flavored with coffee. Yeah. And it's a different drink. You're tasting, you're getting a mix of something. Yeah. So it's just a different drink to coffee. It's not, I mean, people call it coffee, but it's not coffee in its pure form.
Well, when I went to Italy, they said that latte macchiato is milk marked with coffee, and cafe macchiato is coffee marked with milk. Yeah, the other way around. So I think I'm the marked with milk guy.
Yeah. It's nice when I start drinking coffee, particularly the kind of like more burnt bitter ones, I would put a bit of cream. That was nice. Yeah. It just America, kind of like gives it that mouthfeel. They have creamers and stuff.
Half and half, which is like, I don't know what it is really. I don't know, but is it like half cream, half milk or something?
Something like that.
It's pretty like oily.
Yeah. I mean,
but actually, I could deal with it. It's all right. Well, in Japan, they have these tiny little capsules of cream that you put in your coffee. Sure. I don't know, like 2-3 grams, and they have like a liquid sugar as well. Yeah. So it's really good value for coffee in Japan. You know, I'm sure that because of the specialty thing you were talking about, if you go to a I'm
jealous, by the way. I'm going to make myself a cup of coffee. I'm sorry. I'm looking at you, drinking coffee, and I can't.
Getting relaxed now. Yeah. So you can just go to any corner shop and you can get a pretty nice coffee, and they do. You can even get a specialty version for a little upgrade, but you're looking at 80 pence for a coffee, and I think it's better than your Starbucks and your Costa and all that sort of stuff. But weirdly, Starbucks is still really popular in Japan. You can't get in; it's full all the time.
Well, it's different. I mean, if you take Starbucks,
but it is a different drink, like you say.
It's a different drink. I mean, most of what is sold in Starbucks, if you think about it, is milk and sugars. It's actually there's all the frappuccinos. Most of them are not even made with coffee.
Well, my kids always want to go to Starbucks. They always want a frappuccino, but they don't drink the coffee.
Frappuccino most of it is not with coffee. It's like with chocolate and
it's like a chocolate milkshake or something.
I personally like it.
Right.
I would go 2-3 times a year because I don't drink a lot of sugary stuff, but. Sure. I go 2-3 times a year and I'll have a nice, mocha frappuccino.
Do you have a flake stuck in it as well?
I'll have with cream, absolutely, as much as possible, When
I was a kid, I didn't like milk.
Okay.
So, I actually don't like milk, weirdly. So, it is purely just to sort of modify the flavour of coffee, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But the more I've got into sort of refined coffee, the more I like just a big mug of black coffee in the morning, more weak style.
Yeah.
Again, this is so many different ways to enjoy it, isn't there? And
Absolutely.
I don't think any of them are better than others.
No, it's just different. It's just the best drink is the one you enjoy. Ultimately. Going back to the extraction, what we were talking about earlier and everything. So this is actually a little bit of science, but it's the kind of stuff that I know that I know that you like.
Yeah.
If you take a coffee bean, right? Only what is it about? I don't know. 30% or so is soluble. Everything else is insoluble. So when I say soluble, meaning that it can, what's it called? I mean, it can melt.
Get coffee out of it?
Yeah, it's soluble. It can essentially think about it as melting into your cup of coffee, right?
Okay, that's the part that you actually end up drinking.
Absolutely. Now, out of the 30%, not all of the 30% is tasty.
Right.
So, if you're looking at the SCA and everything, and in terms of kind of protocols,
what's that, sorry?
The Specialty Coffee Association and the protocols they've done, and a lot of the research they've done in terms of what is a good extraction, where is the coffee extracted to be balanced. It's anywhere, they say, between 18 to 23% extraction. Right. So when you take a coffee and you grind it and you introduce hot water to it and you let it brew, you're basically, dissolving some of the coffee into it. And think about it a bit like tea. You put a tea bag into a pot, with some water. If you leave it there for an hour, you're going to extract everything that you can from it. Yeah. You're going to dissolve all the solubles, but it's going to taste really, really harsh, right?
Yeah.
To know what grind size and how much, amount of coffee to water ratio, etc., to brew in a particular amount of time to extract the coffee. So when we make a capsule, for example, so we roast the coffee, we let it degas and stabilize, and then we take it to the packing line, and we grind onto the packing line into the capsules, and we'll take the samples of the first batch that we've made, let's say 50 capsules or something, and we'll take them and we'll test the extraction. And the way that you taste the extraction is that you take a capsule, you brew it, you measure how much coffee went in, let's say 5.7 grams, the amount of coffee that came out of it, let's say 30 ml or whatever it is that came out. And then you take a little pipette, you take out a sample and you put it in a coffee refractometer. I'll show you what it's like later, I've got one here. And you can test the amount of coffee, of actual solid coffee in the liquid. By tasting that, you can then calculate the percentage extraction. So then if it's under extracted, over extracted, we'll align everything, the dose, the grind and everything to make sure that you have a balanced extraction each and every time. So we are the baristas when it comes to the capsules.
Nice.
That's why it also always is balanced when you take the capsules, at least the ones we make.
I can see why it's attractive to a fine dining restaurant who's trying to push the envelope on flavour, because everyone's got limited resource and including time. And if they wanted to get that level of complexity and technicality into the drink that they're going to serve to the customers, it is going to be tricky to train every single staff member, because especially these days, people are quite transient, the staying in one job in the service industry for all your life is finished, isn't it? Really.
Well, this is really interesting that you say that, because there's again so much misconception about coffee. We don't do really coffee shops, but we've got one at the Dorchester Park Cafe, and there's a few other places that we do beans. For example, we sell them beans and we train them and we tell them and so on. But we always insist that they get baristas. And they don't get it because before, what happens, if you look at a lot of the other coffee companies, what they would do is they would come and they will give them coffee which is essentially quite old, so it doesn't change much. Mm-hmm. And the coffee is going to be very burnt, bitter-like, so it's already kind of tasting bad. And they will come set up their equipment, they'll put a grind, they'll dial it in as much as they can. And they'll come 3 months later and they'll say, oh, let us dial in your equipment again. With fresh coffee like we do, the coffee degasses and oxidizes throughout the day, and the equipment gets warm throughout the day, which changes the extraction, meaning that you need to adjust to dial in the grinder 2-3 times a day easily.
Really?
Yeah, that's kind of...
And that's even if you're keeping the same sort of coffee in.
That's standard. That's standard in coffee shop. That's standard in big places. So, sometimes they go and they're like, don't touch the grinder because somebody came in last week and he just dialed it in for us. I'm like, oh my God, you know nothing about coffee. And the thing is that this is what the big boys are teaching all these places, and it's shocking to me.
Is it true that in Starbucks their signature roast is basically always burnt on purpose, so it all tastes exactly the same?
I think the majority of coffee traditionally has been roasted quite dark anyways, and there's reasons for that.
Is it hiding the poor quality?
Well, most coffee is poor quality. So let me show you something. So this is something that not a lot of people talk about.
Okay. When
we buy coffee, the first and foremost is you want to see how many defects it has. Now, you don't really think about it when what's a defect, right?
Yeah.
But imagine a big bag of beans, right? Mm-hmm. And you come and you take a sample of it, 100, 200, 400 grams or something, right? Within them, you'll find different defects. It might be foreign matters. It might be little stones. Okay. It might be insect damage. It might be mold. Right. It might be fungus. It might be all kind of damage like that in the actual coffee. Now, if you're looking at it, you can roast all this stuff. I mean, maybe not stones, right? Because that can clamp up your grinder. But so there is the stoning mechanisms. But all the rest, if you roast them really, really dark, you won't notice those tastes.
The taste of fungus.
Yeah, it's not going to be there. Jeez. Now, by the way, there are animals as well. So if you take, for example, just do a Google search for the amount of insects that is allowed to be present in a regular coffee that you can buy in a supermarket, technically.
Seriously? What's the percentage?
I don't know. It's
anything over 0 is too much for me.
Precisely. So when it comes to specialty grade coffee, you're not allowed to have a single category 1 defect, for example.
How do they pick them out?
So you take a sample of 400 grams and you hand sort them to check if there is any defects. If there are any defects, basically you don't buy that coffee.
Okay.
You reject the coffee. So
it's not like someone's going through and pulling out all the individual bad beans, is there?
Well, it is when you're kind of buying it. So if I was a coffee buyer that I was to buy kind of like regular coffee, not the kind of coffee that I do, I would come, take a sample and see just how much defects it's got and say, okay, this is acceptable or it's not acceptable for me. With specialty people, if they find defects, they won't buy it at all. For us, it's the kind of coffees that we get they are hand sorted one by one by the producers themselves to produce
bean
coffee.
by bean?
Bean by bean, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. Now, some of them have machines that can do it for them, but still after the machines, they still do it bean by bean.
I suppose that gets rid of the majority and then they just check by eye. This reminds me a lot of the, seaweed sheets for sushi.
Okay.
The nori process is because they have like a grading system.
Yeah.
I would imagine it's quite similar to coffee actually, and they do it all in batches.
Yeah.
And they have buyers who buy the batches and they have like a grading system. And again, it's like that. What defects are in it?
Yeah.
And it's not things like stones and mold, but it's things like missing parts. You also get fungus, like you said.
Yep.
You can get different colours.
Yeah.
You know, and there's so many different variations. It's really similar, actually.
You know, this is really interesting. So let's see insects in coffee. I just want to see if there's anything.
I don't want to look.
Sorry?
Mind you, it's okay. I'm eating, drinking yours, aren't I, today? So.
There you go. If you just Google insects in coffee, according to the FDA's own studies, up to 10% of green coffee beans are insect infected.
10%?
According to according to the FDA. So yeah. I think it's quite a valid source, wouldn't you think?
It's not for me.
There you go. Your coffee grounds are full of bugs, and if that's okay. So this is the kind of things that, especially if you're going to be buying ground coffee, you'll never know.
Yeah.
You'll absolutely never know.
Yeah. 100%.
So you know, so this is kind of like the beginning. That's kind of that's kind of like where it starts. Now, when we buy the coffee, so we get it. That's kind of like samples that we get. This is one that I have opened already. I mean, all these I have opened already because I cut them. So, but you can see how they all come in a vacuum, vac pack, and so on. And here, this is one I wanted to show you. Actually, this is a competition set. So this is the best of Panama competition, right?
It's
so
a cool looking box.
Yeah, it cost. So we will get 2 of them, and they cost us. This one I think cost 2 or 3 grand.
Wow.
Yeah. So when you open it,
very cool.
What you get?
Can we show the camera that?
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
How cool is that? You see that?
Yeah. So what you get is basically these are the samples. So let me show you how it works. This is, by the way, the most expensive coffee on earth.
Wow.
So it scored 96.5, and we bought a kilo of it for over $10,005.
Jeez, for how many? For 10 kilos?
1 kilo.
1 kilo?
Yeah, just 25 kilos on earth, and this is a sample of it. So
it's called Carmen Geisha.
Yeah, so it's
by Panama Red Carmen Cafe.
Yeah, so it's basically Carmen is the name of the estate. So this is what
10 grand for a kilo.
For 1 kilo. I can show it to you. I've got it upstairs. I'll show you. And this is what we get. So we'll get from different roasters when we buy. I mean, if we buy competition coffees, we'll get really, really nice looking sample like that.
I mean, it's not a tiny pack, is it? That so if that's 10 grand a kilo and it's one of these in here.
Oh yeah,
so
yeah.
It seems like.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, I don't necessarily say it's great value, but
I think it is great value.
I mean, yeah,
it's not cheap.
It's not cheap,
but it's good value.
Yeah, we've got a coffee that is coming out later on this year, which is a Costa Rican coffee, and I tried it, and I was
quite small.
Yeah, they're small. Well, they double up. After you roast them, the coffee expands, and you'll see it doubles up in size.
All of them do.
Yeah, and it loses 30% moisture.
Why are these so small then? They're almost like lentils.
I mean, if you take that and you compare that to, I mean, yeah, these are bigger geishas. It's just different varietals. Yeah. So this is a varietal called geisha. This is a varietal called Catuai. And it's just a different coffee. I fell in love, by the way, with this coffee, so I bought some. It's just so good. We'll roast it, actually.
Yeah, that sounds great.
You can try it.
So this is a yellow Catuai.
This is a yellow Catuai. So when you're talking about the varietal, so if you think about it, a coffee is a seed. So it's the seed of a coffee cherry.
Sure.
So the cherry can be yellow, it can be red.
Does anything eat, or can the cherry be eaten by anything, or is it just a waste product?
The cherry is eaten. Well, I mean, there's of course insects that eat coffee.
Sure.
So that's one.
But I mean, from a human perspective.
From a human perspective, the outer fruit itself is normally dried and then made into tea called cascara.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's something that can be used, and people buy cascara.
You'd think because there's so many coffee seeds that are used, that there's an equal amount of fruit.
There is, and more so. The thing is, you won't see much cascara in the UK because nobody classified it yet as anything. Really? And because it hasn't been classified, it's technically a food item. Unclassified is kind of illegal. So
really,
yeah, it's really dumb. But I don't know. Yeah. Maybe they solved it in recent years. I don't know.
It's a huge journey for me because, like, when I was doing work experience at school in Sheffield in 1995, 5, I got my work experience job, and it was at a teacher training college in Barnsley.
Yeah.
And the first time I ever tried coffee, and it was the jarred. Don't laugh.
You have to start somewhere, right?
What was it? Jarred Nescafe, the classic Nescafe. I'd never had coffee before,
right.
And I was 15.
Yeah.
And I was just drinking loads of it.
It's very weak. It's instant coffee, right?
It tastes like nothing.
It's very, very weak.
And I had 2 sugars in my tea at the time. So this is like, but what a journey from that to sort of like what we're drinking today, you know. But that's kind of like, back then, that's all English people drank. You know, like when my wife's family come round, they won't drink my nice coffee.
Yeah.
So I've got all the equipment, well, not as much as you, but I've got the grinder, I've got nice beans, I've got the V60, I've got all kinds of stuff. I've got a lovely, what's it called, the sort of Dutch filter coffee machine, got all that gear, and they will not drink it. They think it just tastes too much. Okay. So they want
something which
they want the Nescafe.
Yeah, look.
So that was the culture. And it was just my uncle who introduced me to the French press that got me into it.
But you know something, this is what I mean. Take chocolate, okay? Yeah. I love artisanal chocolate, you know, single producer, kind of like the way that it's done, and it's dark chocolate, and it tastes delicious, and it's like really.
But it's a big taste, isn't it? It's powerful taste.
It's powerful, and it's very, very kind of unique.
Yeah.
Take Kit Kat. It's nice, but it's not on the same level, it's not the same thing. So some people don't like artisanal chocolate, it just tastes too much, it's not what they like. And most people like Kit Kat, right? Because it's just sugar and milk and that kind of stuff. So at the end of the day, do you really like chocolate, or do you like sugar and milk and that kind of stuff? So that, you know,
milk chocolate is the British thing, really. Dark chocolate is only kind of relatively recent that we started eating it, like en masse.
Yeah.
Like my daughter still only eats dairy milk. You know, I bring home some really good chocolate.
Yeah.
You know, from sometimes when we do trade shows, I might swap a bottle of really expensive soy sauce for some fancy chocolate. Yeah. I come home and I go, oh, look at this amazing chocolate they got, and just like, they won't eat it.
Yeah.
So come on.
So you know, this is the thing. I really like all these kind of like unique tastes, and that's what got me into coffee. So I'm the kind of, you know, people say who eats or who buys your coffee. I always say it's the kind of people that enjoy, you know, specialty chocolate. Yeah. Or it's the kind of people, wine or olive oil. Or the kind of people that will buy caviar for home, or people that will buy, oh, I should have asked you, I really need some aged soy sauce. Damn it.
I know a guy.
I know.
Can I tell you a bit about aged soy sauce?
Yes, you please, absolutely. Because I needed some for a recipe I did last week, and
don't get it aged more than 2 years.
Oh, okay.
So the ones that are aged really far, and this has been taken from people, well, my friend owns a soy sauce brewery in Japan. You know, he's the 18th generation, so he knows what he's talking about.
Sure.
Plus, I've asked the same question to Yuasa Shoyu from Wakayama, and they invented soy sauce. So
okay. So they know a thing or two, right?
Yeah, and a couple of other people as well. Kajita Shoten in Shikoku, I've asked it to him as well. What's the best? 2 years.
2 years.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
But then there's other ways to treat it. So you can change the ratios of ingredients, you can change the quality of the ingredients, you can change the process of making it. You can either make it in metal tanks, or you can make it in the old traditional wooden barrels that have got 200 or 300 years worth of bacteria and things on them, so that adds a load of flavour.
Sure.
And then filtration is different again.
Yeah.
So if you want to get it that deep, so what happens if you get too much aging? You get more umami, but everything else is worse. So the smell is bad, the taste is a little bit off. So if you want to get like a super aged flavour but without losing it, what you can do is a thing called saishikome, and that means brewing it twice.
Okay.
So you can get a 2-year aged soy sauce, and then normally when you make soy sauce, it's water, soybeans, salt, a little bit of wheat and the koji as well. But with the saishikome, you don't use water, you use 2-year-old soy sauce.
Okay.
So, and then you brew it for another 2 years. So it's kind of like brewed twice.
Okay.
So it's like 2 sets of 2. Okay. So you could say it's a 4-year, but actually it's rebrewed again. Okay. So the flavour is intense.
And what happens when you use it for cooking?
This one it depends what you're cooking. I mean, if you're going to cook it like fry with it, I wouldn't.
No. So this was for Well, actually, you don't cook with the soy sauce. You put it on top at the end. You finish it off.
Okay.
It's basically it's a steamed sea bass recipe with scallions and ginger and so on. And then at the end, you put some soy sauce and you put some oil, some sesame oil and stuff on it.
But for that kind of recipe, I would personally go for a really light soy sauce, actually.
Really?
I would personally like a white soy or what they call usakushi, the thin mouth one. Mm-hmm. My preference. I think with with lighter fish and with the ginger and the spring onion profile, I would go the opposite direction. The dark one is really good just for dipping, like just to taste the pure flavour of it. Mm-hmm. It's so intense. It's like dark chocolate. You just want to eat it directly.
You know what? Maybe I haven't tasted the good stuff that
well,
you've got.
Well, we'll do another one.
Because
we'll do a soy sauce edition.
Well, the thing is that you know, as a novice, you'd go to different places and say, do you have any age one? Do you have any age one? And you just take whatever they give you, and most of them don't have anything anyways. Yeah. So the one that you find, you go, oh, great, and you try it, and it tastes unique, it tastes different. You go, okay, that's great, but really from like a consumer point of view, where would you go, if I didn't know you, of course, but where would you go? How would you...
Sushi.co.uk.
Right, honestly. There's literally no place to go. You probably... And I went to all the Japanese centers and everything, and it's useless.
You can get like really good, so average stuff at the Japanese shops, so they're a good place to start. But I think the reason they probably put aged on the recipe is because the ones that are aged tend to be from like real artisanal makers. Right. So you probably do want a handmade. So it's like coffee. There's so much to think about. And
sure.
But you want a handmade sort of artisanal one. But actually, I think you want that, but on the lighter side. I'll send you one.
All right. Well, send me two so I can compare and contrast because that's the only way to get it, right?
But we were talking about the green coffee, and I was telling you how that when I started drinking coffee, it was all about, and my family are still like this, they only want that sort of like mild taste. Okay. So I think what we're doing things, for Japanese ingredients is we think, okay, what do people want to actually drink or eat? Wow, such a funky smell, isn't it?
It smells of like,
What's it smell like?
It smells a bit of like grass.
It's definitely
like proper grass,
Yeah. Oh, there's something in there I can't quite get. I'm getting like white chocolate. There's something in there. It'll come to me later on. This one's. Which one's this one? This one's a geisha.
This is a geisha from Esmeralda. Yeah, beautiful coffee.
Now this smells really funky.
Because this is a natural coffee. So again, when you ferment coffee, so when post harvest, when you remove the coffee from...
It smells like sweet corn to me.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens is that then the coffee starts fermenting. So you can ferment it with the fruit or without the fruit. If you ferment it with the fruit, it's called a natural fermentation.
Is that where you get that sort of banana-y, pineapple sort of flavour profiles?
It's where you get a little bit more funky, more kind of like winey taste, much kind of like more... you do get, kind of like a bit more fermented fruit-like.
Sure.
So they're kind of like fruit bombs in a way. Whereas the washed coffees, you remove all the fruit and you basically just ferment the actual seed itself, and it's just kind of like more clean, and then you get more kind of florality and stuff like that, much more clean acidic notes, which is very, very nice. So
yeah.
But you'll get to try both through. Why don't we kind of like roast a couple of coffees and then we can talk about
I'd love to see how the machine
what
works.
happens, during, etc. So
cool.
Let's talk about that. So yeah, we can move the other thing. So let's switch on the roaster. Hopefully it works. Let's see.
We've got a green light. So
we've got a green light. That's a good start. So you've got.
First of all, is there an app for it?
Absolutely, it all goes through an app.
Wow.
And what happens in the app is that you get to upload and save profiles.
Does it come with some preset, or do you have to set them all yourself?
There are certain ones preset.
Yeah.
But I mean,
it's not good enough.
Well, you can try what other people are doing, but then every coffee you want to profile your own one. Okay. So this is the one that I kind of use for geisha. So it's kind of like you've got the starting temperature and the roasting curve and how long it finishes. This is a 7.5 minute roast. Okay. And let's try it. So let me show you how it works. So you warm the roaster up. It's already uploaded with that profile.
But is it like hot air? Like a hairdryer or something?
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially, come look inside here, and you'll see that it's basically hot air circulating through that. Yeah?
It looks a lot like my popcorn making machine that I paid £30 for on Amazon.
Yeah, slightly different. Slightly different. So what we'll do, the first roast is always, you want to warm up the machine. So I always like to take some leftover coffee. I call it leftover coffee. Some people go like, it's really good coffee that you're burning, but hey, it's
what's
okay.
available.
So we take a 50-gram sample just to warm up the roaster, so you'll see how it works. But at the same time, so now it's ready.
It looks like dry roasted peanuts.
A little
They've
bit.
gone a bit green.
And then you drop them into the roaster, and then it starts. So now look at the coffee, and you can see that it starts to.
So it's kind of swirling it round.
Yeah, and that's essentially what happens. I mean, it's, you know, you've got like a drum roast and air circulating around, and it just starts circulating the coffee.
Does that mean it gets more even on the roast because it's moving?
Yeah, that's what you want.
Right.
And that's also why you want the size of the beans to be similar. Because imagine if you have tiny beans and big beans all in the same batch, so it's called different screen sizes,
Right.
then one of them is going to roast much darker than the other one, right? So you really got to make sure with the actual bean sizes that they are consistent, and those are screen sizes. So that's another thing that we look for when we buy coffee, that they're all kind of the
uniform.
same in a way.
Sure.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
like I said. So
You can see like this. The app is like plotting a graph of temperature, and what's the difference between the yellow and the red temperature lines?
right. So what happens is that technically you've got the air temperature of the roaster, so the environment temperature, and the other one is the actual bean temperature. So you have two different probes, one of them measuring the air temperature, and the other one, when it comes in touch with the actual bean, it will do that. So this is the air temperature, and this is the bean temperature.
So now this is sort of settled down to following the curve that you wanted it to
Precisely.
follow. So what's this little
Precisely.
spinny bit down here?
Okay, so as the bean starts to roast, it will release, it starts to kind of expanding and popping. Funnily enough, you're talking about popcorn, that's exactly what happens. And it starts to release an inner kind of membrane called the chuff.
Okay.
Now this is chuff collecting in there.
It's kind of like when you get a bag of peanuts, the stuff that you get on the bottom.
Yeah, and it's and it's a byproduct of the roast.
And I suppose that's going to be far too over roasted compared to that, so you don't want that.
This is just like a little bit of a skin kind of thing. It doesn't taste good.
Sure.
In the roastery, we take it and then it's been sent to. It's eaten by livestock, so it's eaten by pigs.
Oh, really?
It's something they enjoy eating, but it's not something that that is tasty. I mean, you can try it if you want. It's not toxic by any means, but it's not tasty either. So let me show you what happens during the roast. And I've got it here. So this is actually something from Ikawa. When you take coffee, a few things happen
It's
to it.
starting to smell like baked bread.
Yeah, so this is the smell of freshly roasted coffee, which smells nothing like coffee, does it?
No, it
When you
smells like
go-
bread. Like a nice bread or like popcorn a little bit.
Yeah, normally I turn on the extraction fan
No.
but
It's nice.
so what happens is this: when you start roasting coffee, three things happen. Number one, acidity shines. So you've got acidity in the coffee, so it starts developing.
Okay.
Secondly, flavors develop. We call it sweetness as well. You know, all the kind of fruity and nutty and chocolatey notes. You then develop a body as well. Body is kind of the thickness, the viscosity of the coffee on your palate. Right. So you can have a light body versus a heavy body, or full body means just how heavy it feels on the palate. That's it.
Sure.
And then you've got the roast flavor. Now the roast flavor comes from the roast, if you think about it. So that develops afterwards. Now, what happens is that they're not uniform in the way that these particular sensory attributes, the way that they develop.
Yeah.
First, you've got the acidity. So you've got most amount of acids on a light roast. So that's why light roasted coffee is extremely acidic. Medium roast coffees are the sweetest, but you've got a little bit less acidity.
Yeah.
And then the dark roasted ones, you know, they've got very little acidity. They've got a lot less flavor as well, and they got a lot more of the roast flavor.
Yeah.
Now, if you're using coffee, which inside it is trapped lots of flavors and lots of acids, you can roast it light, medium, even medium dark.
Yeah.
But if you've got coffee which is 10% insects, and all kind of foreign matter, you dark it as dark as possible.
Yeah, because you want to remove all those weird
Well, because
flavors and things.
yeah, because you don't want to taste the flavors almost. So what you want is to have a taste of what's it called? The taste of the machine, the roaster, rather than the taste of the coffee. Imagine. I always say burgers.
Yeah,
I mean, you go to McDonald's and you just have the burger itself on its own, the patty.
yeah.
What kind of flavor are you going to get?
Well, nothing. You need the cheese, you need the ketchup.
You need the cheese, okay, you need the salt, you need the fat. So it's the same thing here. Most coffee is just kind of like not
the black line.
It's just a black line.
So
and that's
looking at this,
that's what kind of like what you're tasting.
looking at this sort of like the graph, it's interesting because like if we're going to buy coffee for the office, say we ran out and somebody runs to the supermarket to buy some ground coffee for the machine,
Sure.
I always just go, get whatever's got the lowest number on it,
Yeah. So
because they can't hide any of the bad flavors in it.
well, the
It
lowest.
only goes down to 3, which is weird. There's no 1 and 2 ever.
well,
3, 4, and 5.
Again, they're arbitrary numbers. They're meaningless.
Exactly,
You know?
yeah.
But what will happen is normally a lighter roast color coffee will typically needs to be a better quality coffee.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of the times when they're roasted too light, and if they lack body and they lack sweetness, that can work really, really nicely as a V60. Because as a V60, you can tolerate much more acidity because you're using less coffee, if you're thinking about it. The amount of coffee that you have in a V60 is about 1.35%.
Okay.
Whereas in espresso,
Yeah.
it's approximately 9%.
So
in
this
a
is why
double
it tastes like a
espresso.
thinner drink.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why, and that's why you can tolerate kind of like a lot of the floral notes. Now, can you hear that popping
I
sound?
had a little crack, yeah.
Yeah.
I get quite a lot of the chaff actually.
Yeah. So here now you can start hearing it's like a bit of like popcorn sound, right? Now this is called
It's
first
starting
crack.
to smell more like roasted coffee now.
Now let me show you this. So let's say I mark the first crack. Okay. Now what happens after first crack is you start getting what's known as roast development. Yeah. So what we're then looking as how much roast development you have after first crack, and then after that, if you roast it even darker, you'll get into a second crack. So it will crack again because of the pressure and become very, very dark, very, very oily, and would lose a lot of the flavors.
Is that when you see those beans that are like almost shiny black?
Yeah. If they're shiny black.
Because that's the Starbucks ones when you buy them, they're shiny black.
Yeah,
aren't
so
they?
they're probably too dark, roasted to second crack even longer and so on. And it's a different roast style. And
Yeah.
some people like it. I don't,
Yeah.
but some people like it. And it's just a different tasting coffee. So, but you wouldn't take the best coffees on earth and roast them so that the only thing that you will taste is the smell of the roast.
But I think, again, we're
Or
talking
the
about
taste of the roast.
we're talking about right at the top end
So
here.
that's it, that's done.
Okay.
So, you got basically...
And the temperature's dropping off.
Yeah, temperature dropping off. We've got just over 14% development. It's probably more like 16% development. And
What makes you say that?
because I started it after, I didn't press it just immediately. So you just have a few more, another 10, 20 seconds, which I didn't capture. But it shows you the amount of development. So then what happens is that when you take a new coffee, you start off, again, there's a lot of experience to it on which kind of like curve do you want, which kind of profile you want to use for that. So for example, the Katwei, I asked them, what kind of coffee is it? They said, roast it like a geisha and you'll see. So I roasted it to my geisha kind of profile. And then what you want to do is if you want to perfect it, you'll say, okay, I like it, but I feel that the roast might need to be increased a little bit to make it longer, make it shorter, make it a little bit kind of like a lower or a higher end temperature, depending on what comes out of it. And each coffee is uniquely different. So what we do is when we get the samples, we have a standardized profile that we use to cut all coffees pretty much. I do a lot of geishas, but there's a lot of kind of other coffees that we use a standardized profile.
Yep.
And that's kind of used as a baseline. So imagine you've got this kit with, 20, 30 coffees.
Yep.
You have to roast all of them the same. And then you put them on the table and you cup them and you try all the 30.
It's just like science, isn't it? It's got to have a standardized experiment, hasn't it?
Exactly. And then you can come and say, okay, you know what? I'm getting, this one seems to be, resonating with me. It seems to get there's something in it which is unique, which stands out.
Yeah.
And then you take that, you buy that, and then you'll do a second round with the coffee, and then you'll take the coffee and you'll roast it to a few different degrees.
Find where you can go with it from like a roast point of view.
Yeah. Then you take that and you go to the big roaster, which for us is a 5 kilo roaster. They're big, it's still tiny, right? For
bigger
us
than
it's
this one.
Yeah, bigger than this one, but it's still tiny. We say, okay, can we replicate what we've achieved on the Ikawa using the bigger roaster? And it can take you a few times. And you know, there's been some coffees that I tried to replicate it and it didn't come out the first couple of times. It's a 30 kilo lot, and the first 10 kilos went down the drains.
You don't want to do that with that 10 grand a kilo one, do you?
Well, I mean, I've done it with expensive coffees, to be honest with you. So
really?
it's been really, really painful. So this is chuff.
Let me just show this to the camera.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't know if you're watching this sort of a YouTube version, but this kind of looks a bit like crispy fried onions, I guess, doesn't it?
It's just a bit like a peanut kind of thing, right?
Peanut dust.
Yeah. You'll get the odd, bean flying somewhere. No, there hasn't been one here, but anyway.
Doesn't smell of anything really, does it?
So this is the fun part now, by the way, where we press this button and the beans, there'll be hot air coming through and pushing all the beans down here. So I'll press it and see what happens
back into
here.
the same thing.
Yeah, so.
I want to buy one of these machines.
Yeah. And that's your freshly
roasted coffee.
Freshly roasted coffee. Now this was just a sample roast.
So you use that one straight?
This is just, I mean, you can. Okay.
I mean, you can eat that.
Now we'll do the real coffee.
Oh yeah. But what I was going to say was, if you're just see some, go to a specialty coffee shop, wherever you are, I always just look for ones that have got the little white line down the middle, so they're light enough roast that you know that it's going to have to be slightly good coffee, otherwise they can't hide the quality. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, I guess
usually when you see that sort of light...
That is chaff, inside it, essentially.
Oh really?
Yeah.
But it's not had that second crack to get rid of it?
Yeah, I mean, once you get to that level, it's... But you don't always see the white line.
Really?
No,
even with a light roast?
Even with in a very light roast you probably would, but it's not a guarantee.
I thought I'd sussed it out.
Okay. So we roast a natural Esmeralda geisha, and then we roast the Costa Rican one, and and I'll show you kind of like how it works. You can cup one versus the other, so a washed versus a natural, for example.
Wow.
Or we can maybe roast a natural. What we can do is, why don't we roast a natural Esmeralda versus a washed Esmeralda, because the same farm, same geisha, I mean, slightly different micro lot and different fermentation, but it's the same kind of thing, if it makes sense, same quality.
There's a lot of variables to track besides quality.
Oh, absolutely. Well, yeah, I mean,
And I think this is where people get lost, and it's understandable, but this is where a brand helps, isn't it? Like, my touchstone is Japanese food, right? And we talked about soy sauce, and there's so many to choose from and so many reasons why it's good or bad, and you're into food, and we've already had that conversation about what is good soy sauce. And I think it's really important to have a brand like Difference, or in our case hopefully Sushi, where if we say this is a good soy sauce or this is a good coffee, whatever one it is, it's going to be a good one, and then within that you have to just find whichever one you prefer.
Yeah. So
and I suppose that's an expert for you, isn't it? That's what you need.
Well, absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, so take for example the geisha varietal, right? So the geisha varietal was discovered in Panama by Hacienda La Esmeralda in 2004.
So it's only 20 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was
2024 at the moment.
The story was that the Peterson family bought another farm, and they were cupping the different coffees from the farm, and one stood out, and it was like really, really weird. And Daniel took it to the cupping table, and he tasted it. It didn't taste like coffee. It tasted really, really bizarre. It had like floral notes and so on.
Yeah.
And
it's more towards the tea side of the spectrum, isn't it? I suppose.
And he came to his dad and he said, what should I should I take it to the competition? And his dad said, you know what? He's not a cupper. He said, you know what? Yeah, let's do it. So they put it in the cupping table in the Best of Panama, and it stood up like a sore thumb, and everyone was like, wow, what on earth is that? And it won Best of Panama. Now, what happened then is that every single year their coffee won. Wow. So everybody else started growing geisha, but they had a head start to it.
Sure.
So that's why they're the most coveted geisha farm in the world. And what they do every year is that they, of course, take some of the coffee and they micro lot, select the coffees that they do, and they score it. So anything that is 90 plus is called their, kind of like special lots. And those special lots, from that they will select some that they will sell directly to roasters like ourselves pre-auction, some that they will put in the auction, and some that they will give to Best of Panama, to the competition.
Okay.
So what we've been doing is we've been, buying from them for many years now. And we always ask them if they're able to, because sometimes let's say they've got a lot for that is, let's say, a few hundred kilos, and they only need like 200 kilos for the competition and stuff for the auction. We said, do you have any leftovers? If they have any leftovers, a lot of time they will give those to us. So we literally have what they consider is their best coffee. And the reason we get that is because they know that we'll give it to the best restaurants in the world.
Give in what respect?
They will sell it to us. They will allocate.
Not give.
No. I wish, right?
I just thought I'd check.
No, they will allocate those coffees to us because they know that we will put them in the best kitchens on earth.
That's another thing though. When you're in a business for a long time,
it's about relationships,
and you
isn't
build
it?
better relationships. You could say it's nepotism or preference, but really it's like, they believe that you're not going to waste this. Actually, a lot of the times, when we're buying sake and things like that, they won't sell it to you unless they know.
Yeah.
In fact, sorry, I'm talking about the soy sauce, the one that I said that you should use for the fish.
Yep.
Those guys won't sell the soy sauce to anybody unless they know that it's going to go to the right customers.
Yeah.
So we had to be introduced by Endo from Endo Rotunda.
Yeah.
Because he uses that specific soy sauce.
Yeah.
And I had to have a video meeting just to make sure that we're all like legitimate. And I was going to pay him.
Of course.
These people, they want, I suppose it's kind of brand for them as well, isn't it?
Well, the thing is, I remember that when I got into coffee, I wanted to buy coffee from Best of Panama.
Yeah.
And it's a competition, it's an auction for the best coffees in Panama. And I remember, funnily enough, Rachel, who from Hacienda La Esmeralda, she wrote me an email when I logged into the portal to sign up as somebody to buy a sample and everything. They wrote back like, who are you, sort of thing. Why do you want to buy it? What's your, why should we allow you to participate in the auction? So I wrote back and I explained what I'm doing and how what we're doing is different. And we were capped. There was only a certain amount of crop that we were allowed to buy. Now we've got the reputation. Now we can get higher, better lots. We can get, kind of like preference and so on. But it took time and it took us proving to them that we deliver.
Yeah.
But that's also why we get that, right?
You work so hard to earn money and then you have to work bloody hard to spend it.
True.
Such is life.
True.
Oh, do you mind if
there we go. It's just got into first crack now.
Cool.
All right.
Okay.
So this one was roasted 22% roast development. So kind of like giving it a lot more.
The last one was about 16, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was low. And it was also the first roast. So the first roast, like I said, the equipment is not warm enough yet.
Okay.
So that's why you always want to kind of like discard your first roast.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So this is one of the things that happens. If you take, for example, roasters, they're buying regular coffee, let's say, or even cheap specialty coffee. I say cheap, it's not cheap, but it's, let's say, standard, kind of run-of-the-mill specialty coffee.
Is this on?
Yeah, I just put it on.
Can you switch it on this one?
Yeah. No, of course. So, sorry, let me just.
You say that again?
Yeah. So if you take a lot of specialty, not a lot of specialty. I mean, you get some specialty coffee. Yeah. People come and they'll do a roast, and the first roast, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to chuck it? And then, because it's going to taste okay, but it's not going to be as brilliant, right?
So you always need to do that first roast,
yeah,
and that's always going to be not as good quality as the...
It's going to be slightly less. Now, if you're making 50 batches or 100 batches and you mix it, you won't notice.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So do you mix it or do you throw it away? Right? So again, I kind of throw anything which is not perfect. because I'm all about perfection.
Right.
But, there's a lot of reasons, there's a lot of things that, people will come and they'll profile their coffee. And they'll profile their coffee, get a new batch, they'll profile it here, they'll profile it on in the new equipment. What are they going to do? Sorry, in the big equipment. And it's nice, but it's not perfect. So the second batch will be perfect, the third one will be right. What are they going to do with the first, 10 kilos or 20 kilos or 30 kilos of coffee? I mean, it's still okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to notice much difference if you're drinking it as a latte. So it's going to end up in somebody's coffee shop.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're kind of doing that Formula One thing where you're trying to take everything to the edge, aren't you?
Yeah.
So like,
I'm extreme, but the coffees that we buy are extreme. So I kind of feel you have to in a way,
but those sort of things, although we're kind of like sort of frowning on them, really that's quite a sustainable, sensible business move for most coffee roasters, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, imagine, if they had to throw away a lot of coffee that technically, I mean, it's still tasty.
Yeah.
It's still nice coffee, just not perfect.
Yeah.
But I mean,
But if they were honest and said that batch 1 is like £10 a kilo cheaper than batch 2 to 50.
I don't think they can do something like that, can they? At the end of the day, a lot of them have coffee shops and they'll just serve it and that's it. Okay, so this is where we start getting into the real coffee. So it would look a little bit darker than what you're used to.
That's because we've done the 22% instead of the 16%?
That's how I like it. Try it out.
Okay.
Just take a coffee, take a bean or two, and eat it.
Okay.
Give it about 10 seconds.
So then the sort of more acidic flavors are starting to come out?
Fruit. Tons of fruit in there, right?
There's developing sweetness from just those roasted flavors that you start off with.
But now, what remains in your palate? It's really sweet, isn't it? And that's what I like. I don't like coffees which are really, really kind of light and kind of like acidic and that. I like things which are like fruit bombs. That's one of them.
I was going to say that.
And that's something that could work also for your family, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Well, looking at the, because I always said to the guys in the office, just get the most lightly roasted one you can from the supermarket, which does make sense when you're buying sort of like supermarket quality.
You don't see chaff here.
You don't see chaff, yeah.
I mean, some of it a little bit,
but I think when you get into better quality coffee, I think that my personal profile would be more towards the medium roast.
Completely.
Because I want that acidity to drop off a little bit.
Yeah.
But I want the flavour there and the body, but not the roast flavour. So somewhere in between this area where it crosses over.
Yeah.
From here to here, like somewhere in between this point.
Absolutely. That's how I like it as well.
Oh, really?
And this is the thing. What happens is this as follows. Good coffee, really, really good coffee, like these ones, are naturally high in acidity. So what happens is that you can actually roast them darker. They will still retain a tremendous amount of acidity, but you'll get tons of flavor and tons of flavors to them as well.
Okay, so this graph where the acidity drops off,
yeah,
on different coffees, these lines are going to move.
Of course. Now what happens is that on my coffee, this is averages, right? On my coffee, because the medium, let's say you roasted at medium, the amount of acids that you'll get in my one is much above and beyond what other coffees will have.
So you're keeping some of the acidity and you're getting more flavour and body?
Absolutely.
Ah, okay.
Now, when you take a lot of the kind of like regular specialty coffees, what happens with them is that they will roast it lighter than necessary, let's say, because they know that acidity is regarded as a good thing. But actually what happens is they lack sweetness, they lack body, and all they taste is sour. So they confuse sour with acidity.
Is this why you think that I maybe like a little bit of milk in my specialty coffee? Because I'm getting this acidity from it, and then I want to round that off.
Yeah, of course. I mean, again, coffee is a bitter drink, so it has natural bitterness, it has natural acidity, and it's got flavors. Okay? What do you want to do as a roaster? You want to create a curve, and you want to create a profile that will maximize sweetness and balance your acidity and bitterness. Coffee without bitterness is not coffee. Coffee without acidity doesn't shine. It's very, very dull. But at the end of the day, it all needs to be in harmony. And in my opinion, when you're talking about big brand coffees and stuff, they're all really, really dark. They lack flavors, they lack acidity. If you're taking a lot of the specialty coffees, most of them are too light and they lack flavors and they lack bitterness. What I try to do is to get the point right, but you can get it right if you're using better coffees, I find.
It's a good starting point.
Well, that's what I feel. I mean, that's kind of like that's my truth.
Yeah.
I mean, and of course you can challenge me. I mean, try the.
I ain't challenging anybody.
Listen. Take the coffees, of course.
Yep.
Take them home and and try them and see what you think. Of course.
I have one of these.
The Quintos, yeah.
It's the best.
Yeah, of course. Well, I use it. I've got we got tons of them, and it's kind of like. We got all the colors and everything.
I got one because they're made in Japan, right?
Yeah,
I got
Quinto,
one.
yeah, very good.
I was in a town called Matsuyama on Shikoku Island, and I was just wandering about because I had a day off. They had a shop, and all they sold was like coffee accessories. So I was like, I'm gonna have a look around there because it's gonna be cool. I'm in Japan, and I thought I'm gonna treat myself to a little flask. So the good thing about the Quinto is that it's got this top lid.
Yeah.
But once you take that off, there's like another lid inside. Yeah, like this.
Yeah.
So you can drink it through that, you don't spill it, but it keeps it warm even with the lid off.
It's brilliant.
What a great idea.
It's brilliant.
So now I've got 4 of them.
You know something funny? I use it also to brew tea.
Oh, really?
Because, I mean, yeah, sometimes you get some tea leaves in there, but in general it's quite good.
You can kind of drink it through it without getting too many tea leaves?
No, I just use it as a brewer. I'll decant it into something
really?
else.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's like, when I'm taking like tea on on a walk in the winter, the countryside or whatever.
Yeah.
After a while, it always tastes bad, even though you've taken the tea bag out. It just seems like keep rebrewing itself in the flask.
I think that flavors over time diminish.
Sure.
So even coffee, after a while, you can batch brew something, but a few hours
later,
later,
it's more robust than tea.
I don't know. Because it depends on time. I mean, I know that if you keep it for a few hours, both of them are not going to taste good. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you an hour or 15 minutes because I just don't know.
Yeah.
With coffee, it's maybe 2 hours or so. You
really?
can keep it. Yeah. Afterwards, you should refresh.
I always make like a little coffee, stick it in the Quinto, stick it in a cup holder of the car.
Yeah.
And you're good for hours. Well, 2 hours.
Well, how long can you drink it? How long can you keep it drinking a cup of coffee?
Just have a little sip every now and again, keeps you interested, doesn't it? So, this coffee that we roasted first, which one was that?
So this is the natural coffee, and you'll be able to taste the differences in a minute.
So natural production process, and what variety was it again?
It's a geisha
that
from Esmeralda.
Geisha
yeah.
from Esmeralda.
Both of them are geishas.
Which is the original founding place of the geisha.
So originally geisha is a coffee that comes from Ethiopia, from Geisha village.
Oh, okay.
So that's why you got some people in the industry arguing whether it should be pronounced geisha or geisha with an I or without. I think it's a silly argument, but anyways, it then made its way to Costa Rica, and from Costa Rica made its way to Panama.
Oh, okay.
But ultimately, I don't know if it is because of terroir, if it's because of exceptional farming, or if it's all of the above.
Yeah.
I kind of say, if you're talking about, let's say, wine, I always say it's a bit like Pinot Noir in Burgundy.
Yeah.
It's that. You can get Pinot in other places around the world, but Panama still grows the best geisha at the moment,
really?
Yeah. So that's why we when it comes to geisha, you will only ever find in our collection geisha from Panama, or if it is a Cup of Excellence champion, a particular geisha, like this year we did a geisha from Mexico. I've got it upstairs. I'll bring some. You can try it. It'll be an interesting, actually. It'll be here's again. It's cracking. So we've got a few minutes down, and it's going to be ready. So yeah, we discard these ones. So bye beans. Always recycle, always compost. So
yeah.
With our capsules, we compost them as well. We recycle them. Sorry, we send them to Podback. They collect them from you send it back to them, and they.
What your pods?
Yeah, they're 100% recyclable.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. So the thing is, a lot of people. The issue with recyclability of capsules is not that they can't be recycled. Is that people don't bother.
Sure. Yeah.
You can recycle today anything.
What's it made out of?
It's made of a combination of IML, which is plastic, and aluminum. So it's a combination. By the way, Nespresso is the same. They're made of plastic. Well, a layer of plastic, which for them it's kind of like a silicon layer,
Okay.
and aluminum as well.
Really?
Yeah.
We have plastic because there's plastic tax now import. So when we're importing products, if they have plastic packaging on them, we have to like assess the weight of it all,
Yeah.
and then we have to pay a tax on how much plastic we bring into the country.
Yeah.
But however, some plastics are different to others from a recyclability point of view.
Yeah.
PET, for example, you can actually recycle it quite freely.
Sure.
But I think it's PS or another kind of plastic. You can't do anything with it.
Okay.
So there's plastics and there's plastics. They're made out of all kinds of different things.
Of course, absolutely.
And people just put them in the plastic bin. I don't know how the recycling guys do it, but you know.
Well, I mean, if you
I've got
take
quite a lot of respect for them, really.
if you take compostable materials, a lot of them are plastics as well. They're just compostable.
Really?
Yeah. A lot of the capsules which are compostable, they are actually plastics.
But it's just a biodegradable plastic.
It's just a biodegradable plastic.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. So you know, it's there is, like you said, just like anything, there is plastic and there is plastic. You know, a lot of people, you know, when they talk about sustainability in particular, and we did a lot of research on that, studies and everything, because we're a carbon a negative company.
Oh, really?
We're climate positive. We offset everything and beyond. If you take the amount of energy it takes to produce a cup of coffee from a capsule versus the amount of energy it takes to produce a cup of coffee from a traditional machine, there's less CO2 coming out from a capsule.
Is that because when you're sort of like boiling the kettle, you're boiling excess water and things like that?
Well, it comes down predominantly to two things. The major culprits are the amount of coffee and growing the coffee. And the second one is brewing the coffee and the temperature of the water and the equipment. You know, La Marzocco, for example, needs to be on 94 degree all the time if you think about it in a coffee shop. Whereas this one is just flash heating a very, very small amount of water when you're doing capsules. So when you're looking at the end of the day and you're really talking about sustainability from CO2 perspective, there's less CO2 being emitted from capsule than there would be from a traditional machine making a cup of coffee.
That's interesting.
And yeah, I mean, you know, people don't think about everything, but when you kind of like really assess the life cycle, you know, do a life cycle analysis, and we work with a company called Earthly, and they do that for us.
Really?
Yeah, they
That's
check
pretty
all
good.
of our products and everything. And
Because like the CO2 footprint of a product isn't just necessarily what it's made from, it's how far it's had to travel to be made in the first place. You know, so say for example, the coffee was grown in one place, then it has to be transported on a truck to the auction.
Sure.
The auction might send it somewhere else. Does it get flown? You know,
yeah, of course.
All these things happen like that. For our stuff, we have to bring it in from the other side of the world.
Yeah.
Sounds bad, and of course it's probably better if you just eat carrots that are grown in Lincolnshire. But if you do this the most efficient way, like we bring everything up from Japan to the port in Tokyo on trains, and then it goes on a sea freight.
Yeah.
With hello, that's noisy. Okay, so it's been flushed down to the bottom. And we need to go for this one. So the first one's the geisha, and this one is what?
Also geisha.
Oh, okay.
But this one is a wash. Different.
Really different. This one's pings a bit earlier.
This one has more kind of like crisper acidity.
Yeah.
The other one is more kind of like fruity, so that kind of like almost more robust flavors. But you'll see in a second, we'll grind them, we'll make some coffee with them. Now, let's talk about freshness.
Yeah.
Shouldn't drink that. Well, filter, 7 days. Espresso, 3 weeks. Everybody thinks, you know, fresh coffee is best. This is way too fresh.
Too fresh.
Yeah, too fresh. So what's going to happen is that it's not going to have the sweetness that it will get in about a week's time.
So I don't want one of these machines for my house.
Well, you can have it. Well, the thing is, you might want it because then you can, you know, roast your own and kind of rotate. But really, really, really fresh coffee, doesn't taste as good as
Why is
as
that
one,
then?
because it's a live product. It's just when you're making bolognese and the next day tastes better.
Yeah, or lasagna, yeah.
Same thing,
Or
right?
pizza.
Yeah.
Or curry.
So there you go. So there are certain things you just need. It needs to stabilize. So after the coffee. So by the way, do you see the size of the beans now?
Oh, is this the tiny one?
No, but look at the size.
Oh yeah, no, it's still small, but
It's
yeah,
still small compared to
they
that.
almost doubled in size, really, haven't
Yeah.
they?
And they became 30%. They became like 30% less weight. It's 20% less weight. Yeah.
I
So you
suppose
lose.
it's like popcorn explodes, doesn't it, and then sticks in that shape. But these are kind of like, is air got into all this?
Sorry?
It's kind of fried itself from the inside or something. Why is it not bigger?
It's a popcorn. So what happens is that
Right.
you've got a lot of CO2
Yeah.
and a lot of kind of like pressure, and then at some point it pops. So that's your crack, and it releases moisture. So you've got moisture level. So a lot of people talk now. There's this trend to what's it called? Freeze coffee. People say, "Oh, should we freeze the coffee?" It's like, well, if it's green, it's got a lot of water inside, so you shouldn't.
Just going to turn to crystals, yeah.
But if you've roasted it, now you can freeze it and it can keep for a long time. I mean, again, minus
18 or further?
further.
Really?
Yep, further.
So minus 18 is no good. You don't want to do that.
You want, I mean, again, depending on how long you're going to keep it for, but the colder the better.
Sure.
The colder the better.
And do you want to freeze that at today or in a week? Or do you sort of like freeze it today then leave it a week? So I've stumbled you.
Well, I mean, look, gut feeling, we don't do it because there's no need for us to do it.
Sure. Okay.
Gut feeling is that you freeze it when it's ready.
Right.
Because you're stopping degassing and oxidizing when you freeze it. So then when you unfreeze it, or when you can grind it from, or you can brew it from frozen, if it didn't settle yet, then it's, so you probably would, I would wait. If you told me today you need to wait, I'll say, okay, I'll wait a week and then I'll freeze it.
And then freeze it.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's what I would do.
Okay.
Okay,
So the big grinder.
let's cup some coffee. I mean, it is way too, typically when we do cupping, we wouldn't cup a coffee until about 8 hours post roast, because like I said, it is still extremely fresh.
Okay, so we got 13 grams.
Yeah. So the first thing you do is you kind of flush a little bit, to kind of remove anything that's remained in the shoot before. Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna put it inside here. Okay. And then smell that? Mm. And then we do the second one.
That smells great. I'm going to have another go.
Yeah, please.
Do you know, unfortunately, I've actually got a really bad palate.
Do you?
I do.
Okay.
I wish I had a better palate. I've eaten so many interesting and nice things. But really, I sort of rely on other people's palate and go from there. Oh wow, this smells much more, like perfumey. And
Yeah, it should, because the second one is the wash one, so it's got like more perfume-like, whereas the other one will be more fruity. You'll see a second when we actually brew them.
Wow, this one's really perfumey, like you say.
Let me just bring.
So I put the perfume one on the left. I don't know which one's matched to the beans. Okay.
Perfume one is the one on the left. Yeah, I think it is anyway. Let me just put that because it always creates tons of mess. So it'll be easier to clean afterwards. Cool. So cupping. let's take the cupping sheet. So, like I said, every coffee is scored using a 100-point system that was created by the Specialty Coffee Association. So you've got two samples here, sample 1, sample 2. And what you will do is you will score different sensory attributes. The fragrance, the amount of fragrance that you get out of it after you grind it, the aromatics, so after you brew the coffee. The flavor when you taste it, the aftertaste, how long it is, the acidity, quality, the body of the coffee, uniformity of cups. So normally you create 5 different samples and you try all of them to see if there's any differences between them. If there's differences between them, it means that it wasn't properly processed, and stuff like that. So you deduce scores.
Yeah.
And then anything out of over 80 is of specialty grade. These coffees are 90 plus.
Okay.
So very, very rare coffees. So let's put some fresh water.
So I watched something on YouTube about people who create specific bloody mineral waters when they're making coffee.
Yep.
So they buy in water, they like not filtering it, but they like distilling it or something. And then they're adding their own minerals to it to create a specific mineral water.
Yep.
I mean, it's pretty extreme as far as I'm concerned, but you tell me.
Yep. So let's do a little test for you. Okay.
Because my favourite water was the Caravan at Bridlington when I was a kid. Go and check it out.
All right. So let's do this, right? I'm going to brew the same coffee using 2 different waters. The first water is filtered water from my tap.
Okay.
Which doesn't have. I need to install a new filter.
Okay.
For coffee, but the filter that I have right now is just a filter that cleans it.
Yeah.
But it still has high minerality.
So does it add some minerals to the water then?
No, it's just water that has that. It's just naturally high minerals.
Okay.
There is minerals still in the water.
Yeah.
Or I should say, kind of like hard water.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be 1 cup. That will be the first one.
But it's the same actual coffee.
Yeah, it's the same capsule, same everything. So that's going to be the first one. And the second one, and that's why I got it, we'll try it with Volvic water. And Volvic water is actually a water which is relatively low in minerality, which in coffee is a relatively good thing.
Really?
Because you don't want the water to be too harsh. So and again, normally I have actually a proper filter, but we just ran out over Christmas and I need to get a new one. But for the experiment I was doing today, I bought some of the mineral water to show you the difference.
Okay.
Okay, because it's again the same coffee, so. Okay. So always flush the machine, because you want any residual water or coffee or anything to come out before your next, your first, the next brew. And if you see just how much muck comes out of it in between, and people don't clean their machines, it drives me absolutely bonkers,
I mean, it's obvious, isn't it, really? But
it is obvious.
A big part of the coffee is the water, and I'm just sticking unfiltered tap water in my coffee at home.
Yeah. So try this one. This is the geisha that was brewed.
Very cool cup.
Yeah, it's an Orland cup. It's the one for Scotch. So this is with 1 water.
I mean, the smell's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, you can smell that as well, by the way, and you can compare.
Which one is this? This is
the Volvic, and this one. Yeah, it's both of them are mine. Yeah.
I mean, it's a big character of a coffee on its own, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. But what I want you to taste is the nuances between the 2 different types, particularly the acidity.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. With so to be honest, it started off less acidic and more like easy to drink, shall we say? And then it went kind of up at the end with this one.
The thing is, it's not just about the acidity, but it's how the acidity carries.
The acidity was straight away on this one.
It's how it carries the fruit. So if it carries the fruit in a nicer way, you'll get more sweetness.
Yeah, this one's like acidity, bang, straight away. This one feels like a ramp up to the flavour.
Mm-hmm. So you see, it definitely
does, yeah, for sure.
And yeah, okay. So what we
I prefer the mineral water.
Yeah, see.
So
what we do here is we're going to cup the coffee. In order to do that, what we do is we've got 2 samples, both of them with 13 grams, and we're going to fill them up with water, brewed at 94 degrees. And
are you just filling them to the top, or?
Yeah, pretty much. And then what happens is that you grind them to kind of like coarse grind.
And you've been timing that, haven't you?
Yeah, so what you do is you time it for about 4 minutes, because that's the amount, that's kind of like your time that you want to let it brew before you kind of open the crust.
And is this a thicker, more like a bouldery, shall we say, grind to a normal one?
This is kind of like a French press.
Uh-huh.
This is a French press.
Is that
grind.
Because we're going to leave it for 4 minutes?
Yeah.
Quick extraction.
Yeah. So you can smell those 2 now, and smell the differences between them. And like you said, this one will be much more perfume-like than the other.
Yeah.
Very interesting, huh?
It is interesting, yeah.
Yeah. Now let me just take a bit of water here, and we can break it in a moment.
So you want it to form a crust?
Well, I mean, it will form a crust. So
Right.
what will happen is that you'll get, the particles will kind of float. Mm-hmm. And then after 4 minutes, what we do is we stir it a little bit, we break it, and then we remove the top layer, we clean it, and everything else subsides to the bottom.
Okay.
And then you wait a little bit to let it cool down, and then you taste the coffee.
What's the water for?
In between to clean the spoon and to remove the crust. Oh. And you put it in there. You'll see in a minute. It's 2 minutes really. So.
Okay, that's interesting. So like normally with cupping, all right, okay. Yeah. How do you, when you're doing a cupping, avoid having a crazy amount of caffeine?
You spit.
Okay, right.
Yeah. So a lot of the times I will have, where is it? I'll have some of these. I don't know why I do it with that. I shouldn't really, but I'll have these kind of things, and I'll taste it and I'll spit into that, and then I'll throw that away, kind of thing.
Sure.
But I have that for going out sometimes and just having a quick one. But you spit.
Really? I'm bad with the sake tastings.
Yeah, I'm bad with.
I just drink it.
Yeah, I kind of do. I kind of do the same. And what I find is I have zero problem with sleeping at night.
Right.
But when I drink a lot of coffee, and when I say a lot of coffee, I mean
lots.
A lot of coffee. You know what I'm talking about. How do you say it? Satiation from food, or like I never feel like
hungry.
No, I'm always hungry.
Oh, you are hungry?
Yeah. So one time I went and
it's a diuretic, isn't it? And also it like suppresses your appetite normally.
Yeah. Coffee. So for me, it's the other way around. So what happens is I went once and I cupped so many samples. 100 cups. I was like that. Wow. Then I was like, I'm hungry. So we went out for dinner, had a full meal, left the meal. I'm starving. I'm still starving. Went to McDonald's, had a Big Mac, came home. I'm still starving.
Really?
I didn't know what to do.
Got a coffee munchies.
No, I was like, it's literally that. So it actually happened to me last week. Every time I say it's not going to happen again, I know how to do it. It happens again. Yeah.
I'm completely the opposite. If I drink coffee, I'm just not hungry.
Yeah.
That's weird. Okay, so we're coming up to 4 minutes.
All right.
now.
So 4 minute point. What we do is we kind of break the crust and smell it. So.
And this is why it can get a bit messy.
Yeah, so let me now clean this.
So you're just removing the crust with 2 spoons?
Yeah.
I'm just describing it because some people are just
sure.
listening to the audio only version. Like so.
Yeah, you're just kind of like removing everything that came on the top, so it's nice and clean.
But you still got grounds at the bottom?
Yeah, that's fine.
They're just going to sit there?
Yeah, they sit there and they don't... really interrupt too much. That's fine. It's a bit like cafetiere, you know, it doesn't interrupt too much.
Mm-hmm.
There is a science to it, you know, wine, everything.
Oh, I'm sure there is, yes, flipping it.
Because you're like, why wouldn't you brew? Why doesn't it? Because it's fascinating stuff. Okay, so now please come smell those. Now smell it post crack, post cleaning, I suppose.
It smells really interesting. The floral one, perfumey one. Well, this one's developed into quite a nice flavour though now. Smell now.
Wow. I mean, talking about perfume, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it is literally just so floral, isn't it? It's almost like roses.
Yeah. Why do you think people go so far down the rabbit hole with coffee and not with other things?
They do with other things. They do with cheese, they do with wine, they do with scotch, they do with lots of things.
I guess they do, but coffee seems to be... I mean, out there are all good examples, but there's so many other things that people could go down the rabbit hole on, aren't they? 'Cause obviously I'm going down that rabbit hole with different Japanese ingredients, but coffee feels to me like more people go to extreme lengths to get it absolutely perfect.
Well, more people drink coffee than probably anything else that you are looking at, right?
Yeah.
So the market is bigger, so it will be, as a percentage, is probably the same. You know, as I get this 1% of people, just half the population drinks coffee.
It's just the very top end.
Not half the population drinks scotch. Not half the. Do you know what I mean? You know, like not everybody.
More fool
drinks.
them.
Well, but you know what I mean. So that's why there's quite a lot. The second thing is that coffee is relatively cheap.
True.
If you think about it, like our most expensive coffee is still cheap.
Yeah, compared to scotch.
Compared to wine, compared to scotch, compared to anything else in the luxury sector.
You can drink it every day.
Listen, you know, I drink, you know, Geisha, which is our most expensive coffee, £5 a capsule, which is a lot of money compared to a 50p capsule. It's 10 times as much. But, you know...
Still less than a pint of beer, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's less than a pint of beer. It's less than going to Starbucks every day and picking up a Frappuccino or something like that. So, why? I mean, of course, it's cheaper for me, but still, even if, knowing what I know now, I would still prefer to drink,
What do you think about the fact that as global warming's coming in, that people are having to grow things at higher and higher altitudes? And that's reducing the places you can grow coffee, or is that moving the places you can grow coffee?
So it's two things. Number one, good coffee grows in high altitudes because you need cooler temperatures. So our coffee is grown in high altitudes anyways.
So the question is, why don't they grow it further north then?
They will. They constantly. So what happens is that at certain points it becomes too high. So over time they will just grow, you know, at higher elevations. That's it. You know, people talk a lot about, you know, global warming is going to destroy crop. There's not going to be a crop because you can't grow it in low temperature. Well, you know, in low elevations. Well, you grow it in higher elevations. A lot of thing is that coffee has traditionally been volatile as a commodity. So a lot of young people don't get into coffee growing. But when it comes to specialty coffee, they would, because they get a premiums. So I think when you're looking at the top end, it's not really going to be so much of a problem. On the lower end, maybe, but
I suppose it moves
again, you have more people coming into coffee because the prices will go up. You know, it is economics at the end of the day. Where there's money.
If you want to be like a craftsman, you don't want to live like completely like third world lifestyle, do you? You want to live, you know, as a farmer, you know, it's like grapes, isn't it? I suppose it wants to be something that's not just completely ignored as a skill. You know, it needs to be recompensed to a certain degree, doesn't it?
Yeah. Now, the second thing that we do, by the way, is when we actually cup, we put boiling water. The reason we put boiling water is because when you cup, you normally cup with other people, and everybody kind of like puts their spoon and tastes it, and then you put it into the boiling water so that it basically sterilizes it. So yeah, we're now at about 9 minutes. I normally cup it about 8 or 10 minutes. Yeah. I mean, grab a spoon and
Okay.
taste them both. So, what you want to do is take a little bit into the, onto the spoon and just kind of like, let it kind of like pull it in with air to allow it to
Yep.
go all over your palate in a way. Yeah. Now what happens is that this coffee, you'll taste the acidity, you'll taste some of the sweetness, but the sweetness will develop significantly. So what happens is when you're cupping coffee, you're assessing potential. So this is not what it's going to taste like. But when you've got 10 coffees, and try the other one now, for example, right? And you get the other one and you'll see the difference between them. You've tasted the second or not? No, so,
Not yet.
so taste the second, right? Yeah. And let's say you've got this interesting taste, right? And suddenly you go,
I can't really describe that one. I said again with my palate, I've eaten so many interesting things,
Yeah.
and I can't bloody describe it. Maybe it's
Okay.
my mind, but that one's got such an interesting character.
yeah. Well, I mean, from the taste of
I'm
it,
at a loss for words, really.
Well, it's just, you know what?
Maybe
there's
that's not a bad thing.
There's a lot of people that will come and they say, "Oh, it smells like lilies, and it smells like
Yeah.
lavender. It smells like bergamot. I always say, is it fruity? Is it floral?
Yeah.
Is it? So for me, you've got kind of like
I get that in the sommelier world with the sake, People go, yeah, like bergamot or pears or
Yeah.
grapefruit or figs or, whatever. And
Yeah.
it's hard for me to really sort of understand what they're saying, but I get different feelings and I can't sort of I can't voice them.
But this is it. Every palate is slightly different.
Yeah.
And the only way that you will be able to really articulate the different tastes is by training your palate for that particular drink and having shitloads of them, right? Think about
True.
it, right?
Yeah,
the
no, you're
only
right.
way that you're able to think about vodka tasters and whiskey
Yeah.
tasters, really you're only able to kind of like differentiate the nuances when you have a lot of it. You have to train,
You're absolutely
you have to
right,
train
because
your palate
I know it's
to
like-
understand what it is.
Banging on about soy sauce, but if you give me 10 soy sauces, I could pick out the good one. Easy.
Because you've done it.
Right.
Your palate knows.
It's like tuning
How
in,
to-
isn't it?
Precisely.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with wine, it's the same thing with cheese, it's the same thing with anything fine. You kind of have to train your palate to get it better.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, you can still enjoy it. But
Yeah,
I think that's
of
why it's
course.
good to. We work with a lot of really good chefs, and I kind of use them
Sure.
as my palate.
Yeah.
So we'll sort of taste things, and they're like, oh, they're really interesting, that's good. And then we'll show them to people.
Yeah.
And I can kind of read people's faces as which ones are really good and which ones are not.
Yeah.
And we can kind of home in. So I'm kind of using everyone else's palate, really.
Sure,
And then
sure.
I get to have all the good stuff, but I still, I
Listen.
don't need that natural skill.
Yeah.
Because I can't compensate for that. It is what it is.
Sure.
When I got COVID, I completely lost all taste.
Oh yeah, I was so afraid of losing my
it
taste.
happened, and I
'cause-
didn't get my taste back for 6 months.
Didn't you?
I could
Wow.
drink a pint of lager, and it tasted like water. No joke. It was bad.
I would be impressed if you tasted water. It tasted
Well, it
like
tasted like
lager.
nothing.
That would have been nice.
True. It tasted like nothing. And even
Okay.
coffee, when you open the bag, I couldn't smell it. So,
Okay, try it now as it
okay.
cools down.
So it's evolved a little bit now,
Yeah,
right?
so what happens as it cools down, you'll taste more sweeter notes. Okay? And what you'll see in particular with this coffee is that even though it's got acidity, you'll taste much more sweetness here. So try
Sure.
this one now as well. I prefer this particular expression of the bean, of this one. Do you see what I mean? It
Yeah,
kind of
this
mellowed
one-
out a little bit.
This one's the different characters, aren't they? But
Yeah.
I still like the first one.
Right.
The second one is more interesting. Well, I wouldn't say it's uninteresting.
Sure.
But this one's quite a really weird is not the right word, but it is characterful, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're both really great.
Well, it's kind of,
This
like I
one
said,
seems like easy drinking. The first one.
they're both, in a way, if you think about it, they're both geishas, both from Esmeralda, both from 2023. One is washed, one is natural.
Wow.
Do you know
That's
what I
it.
mean? So it's just nice to see and then within them you got different micro lots and different that kind of stuff. So that's the kind of stuff that we pick. We work with with the estates, we ask them for the samples of the best stuff they've got. They send us what they think is best, and we try it ourselves. And the ones that really stand out, those are the ones that we get.
Nice. What do you think about decaf as a concept? Like, do you think it's something, like for example, guy who works with me, he's caffeine intolerant, so he can only drink decaf. Yeah. But I want to drink a lot of coffee because I love it. But if I have lots and lots of caffeine, I go a little bit crazy.
Sure. So,
but I want nice coffee.
So this is the thing. If you take specialty coffee and you decaffeinate it using a process which is 100% chemical free.
Is that the Swiss water thing?
Swiss water is one of them, absolutely. Yeah. So if you decaffeinate the coffee using using a process which is chemical free, the amount of flavor that you will extract from it, basically, or the amount of flavor that you will reduce the beans by is going to be minimal. So as long as you've decaffeinated a very, very good coffee, it will taste really, really good. I mean, I think our decaf I prefer my decaf to, for example, we have a coffee called the Yellow Bourbon, which is a great coffee. I prefer the decaf to it.
Really?
It just I find it tastier.
Because I always think people who are drinking decaf, especially on the sort of on this end, they're the ones who just really like the flavour. They're not there just because they need to wake up in the morning.
No, completely.
So we kind of need to look after those people, really.
So let me show you something. I've
been on a search for like a decent decaf. Not a decent. I found some really good ones actually, but I always like to keep a stock of good decaf because 10 o'clock at night I'm still working. I maybe got the laptop or something. I want to have a really nice coffee, but I don't want to worry about not sleeping later on.
No, completely, absolutely. And now there's more and more, both younger people and kind of like health conscious people that basically they want to sleep better at night and so on.
Yeah.
And they drink decaf later on.
Because caffeine's got kind of like a half-life, hasn't it? So like every 4 hours it kind of halves in your system or something like that. Yeah.
I've got a coffee that I want you to try, which is from Panama.
That's this one?
This one. It contains a little bit of geisha, it contains some catuai, it contains a few things. Just curious to see what you think of this coffee in particular.
I mean, it's got that sort of like funky, perfumey
notes
it is.
Again. So actually, funnily enough, it is a natural coffee, but try it anyway and see.
It's not perfume that I'm getting, it's something else and I can't voice it.
It's just kind of like a bit of fruit, but just try it and see what you think of this particular coffee.
This one's delicious.
Okay, so this is our decaf.
I mean, I wouldn't say that's inferior to any of the others.
This is what I mean.
That's what I'm kind of getting at, as like, it doesn't have to be something that's just going to make you ping in the morning, is it? It's something, I just want to drink coffee for the flavour.
Yeah.
I mean, I like when, on a Sunday when I haven't got any responsibilities early in the morning, maybe we've got a friend round who wants to have a chat, drink some coffee and we can go at it.
we when we go and we pitch to new clients and chefs, we present to them our coffees and we tell them what we buy and everything, and we say, okay, let's try with the first coffee, and we brew a decaf and we give it to them. We say, what do you think? And they go, wow, it's really, really good. We're like, great, that was our decaf, now let's go for the real stuff. And they're always shocked that you can get a decaffeinated coffee that tastes good. And if you think about it, why not?
Exactly, why not?
Why not?
But why does it always have to be? It doesn't these days, I think, from my bit of exploring, but it's always the decaf was always the crap one.
Because
it's kind of like the vegan menu when you go to a restaurant. It's just the cauliflower. Just give them a cauliflower. People need to like go down that road.
Well, this is the reason. The reason is, why would you decaffeinate a really good coffee? Right? Because most people will drink coffee, which is, if it's so great and everything, just keep it the way it is.
Yeah.
So you need to have a market for it. Now you're having a market for it. So you've got companies like Swiss Water Process and Decaffeinated Water Company, however it is they're called, that they buy microlots and they decaffeinate them, a few tons of coffee, and they sell them as microlots to us. And that's kind of like one of the things that you're drinking now.
Really?
In there, you can get this kind of stuff, but it's always supply and demand.
Sure.
As long as there is demand, most people, you talk to them and you go like, do you want decaf? And they're like, what's the point? I'm only drinking it for caffeine. It's like, well, there is a niche. There are people that want to drink good coffee at night and, sleep well. And that's what it's for. I drink this coffee at night.
Even after lunchtime, if you're drinking a lot of coffee, it's going to have like an impact on the quality of your sleep. I think, if you like drinking it at like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock?
Depends when you go to bed. I think that the research talks about that you if you really don't want it, I mean, everybody is different, right?
Sure.
But if you don't want it affecting your sleep, then kind of stop drinking caffeine like 8 hours before you go to bed or something, which is essentially after lunch or like around,
right, there you go.
Around kind of like the 3 o'clock, you go to sleep at about 11. That makes about sense.
So, but I don't want to compromise on having a nice drink. Because so
enough.
it makes sense to, like, for me, I want to have a nice coffee, say for example like your classic ones in the morning. I actually like tea first thing for me. Coffee first thing, kind of like the flavour's so powerful that I just really like, because I'm like born and bred Yorkshireman.
You want to try this one more time before we now it cools down. As the coffee cools down, you can really taste so much more in the coffee.
I'm just going to have a little drink of water just to clean my palate from the last one.
No. Still sparkling?
Sparkling, you've got the option.
There you go.
This is a bit cool, isn't it?
It's really cool. The cooker tap is amazing.
Yeah. Oh, I've heard of that before.
It's really, really good.
That's
we love
cool.
it.
Yeah. It's absolutely freezing as well.
I know. It's really good. It's really good. We used to buy lots of boiled waters and we stopped because, you know what for.
Yeah. It fixes a problem, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it also boils as well, right?
Yeah, also boils
cool,
and everything. It's really, really good.
We need to get one for the office. Okay, so this one again. Yeah, it's changed again.
Yep. And try this one.
I'm getting a little bit more of the roasting flavours now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you see,
it really is evolving, isn't it?
It starts getting sweeter and sweeter.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So yeah, that's how it works. I'm gonna wrap those two up for you, and try them now in the next the next week or so.
Definitely, I'm gonna stick them in my little V60 and give them a little brew.
Listen, I mean, take them to any coffee shop and tell them that. What do you think about it? See what they say. They'll be like shocked. This is really good stuff.
You need to remember which one is which.
Don't worry, it doesn't make a difference. Just try both and just see which ones you prefer, and that's it.
Yeah, I'm going to leave it 7 days as well. See if I see the difference.
Yeah, I mean, just try one in 2-3 days, and then go another 2-3 days and try one of each. Do them side by side. Brew 2 cups of coffee. Use what do you use? About 15 grams when you.
Yeah.
So use 15 grams, 250 grams of water, and you'll end up with about 220 grams of drink. Amazing.
Well, thanks so much for that, mate. It's been such a great experience to finally come and do a little bit of tasting with the absolute master.
Pleasure.
And cheers for your time.
Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. Awesome.
Forkside a podcasto, vi sushisto,